Mexico City, one of the world's most densely populated urban areas, the largest Spanish-speaking city in the world, with some 22 million people in the extended metropolitan area. The mission field of Mexico City, that and much more coming up next. Hello and welcome to Mission 360, coming to you today from Mexico City in the country of Mexico. When you come to a city like Mexico City, you suddenly get this sense of being rather small in a very big world. The statistics tell us that in the greater Mexico City area, there are some 22 million people. 22 million. It makes it the largest metropolitan area in the Western Hemisphere. And every day, thousands of people are moving into cities like Mexico City because they see it as places of opportunity. But in this city, we see tremendous poverty and we see tremendous wealth. We see so many different cultures. And as we see the growth of cities around the world, we're reminded of the growing mission challenge that is facing the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Historically, we have been a rural church, but today we need to find new and creative, holistic ways to reach the many diverse peoples in cities such as this. We'll be talking more about this on today's program, but first up, let's travel to a totally different area of the world, to Micronesia.
I've wanted to be a student missionary ever since I knew what a student missionary was, and my dad has gone to Palau, so I decided to go somewhere that I've always wanted to go, and that's to an island. And I wanted someplace remote with mountains, so I picked Koshai.
Welcome to Kosrae, one of the 4 Micronesian islands, an exotic place in the Pacific Ocean. It's remote, beautiful, full of life and exotic fruits. The perfect place for adventure.
Awesome. Yeah, it's really neat. Actually being in a different country and like experiencing God in a whole new way. It's like I imagined it in some ways and yet better in others.
But why would someone in their college years fly across the planet to stay an entire year?
So I teach the 5th and 6th grade, and I teach all the subjects. And now I'm teaching some of the 7th and 8th grade classes.
Language arts, and then they have science with Carissa. And then I do math, and then social studies and health, which is my favorite to teach.
To have the opportunity to do something that you're totally unqualified for, which is scary, but it's also super cool because you can just be thrown into it and learn so much.
You're leaving your important scheduled life back home to come help people who you don't know, but I'm leaving my comfort zone and I'm coming here where I don't know anyone. But it's crazy how fast the bonds grow, and you have family here.
This is a work of love. There would otherwise be no school if it wasn't for student missionaries sent from Adventist churches and universities to nearly all of the islands in the Pacific Ocean. These dedicated volunteer missionaries are changing lives. And it isn't all work here. They do have opportunities for fun activities.
It's not all work. It's fun too. You can go explore. You take the kids with you and go explore. They took us to the waterfall the first week we were here, and it was just fun getting to know them. And
they were all going spear fishing. It's whoa, that's awesome. So we go out with metal spears and we're looking under rocks and shining flashlights and stepping on coral and everything, and they're stab it, stab it, stab the fish. I'm okay, stab, miss. And, yeah.
As the volunteer missionaries engage the children, nature, and themselves, they create a special bond and memories they will carry for life. This year, nobody expected what was just ahead. As the student missionaries learned the condition of Chuuk, a neighboring island that is several flight hours away, they were sad to hear that some students could not attend school for lack of teachers. Kosrae, on the other hand, was fully staffed, so Julianne and Carissa decided to help.
So being a student missionary wasn't really a huge leap of faith for me. It's what's happening right now that is a huge leap of faith.
In the Bible, God says to go, and I'm taking that literally, and I'm going.
Although it's really sad that these girls are leaving, it's cool how they see a need somewhere else, and God is going to qualify us to be able to take care of the gap that needs to be filled here as they're filling a gap somewhere else that needs it.
It took a leap of faith to serve God in a remote island, then a huge step in faith to move to a more needy place. Carissa and Julianne were warmly welcomed in Chuuk, and they will for sure be remembered in the hearts here and in the books of heaven.
I'm sure by the time I leave, my perspective on life will be absolutely torn up and a new one will be in place. Already it's changing so much just from a couple weeks here, and I love it.
It's like the best thing I've ever done, like the best choice I've ever made.
It's so worth it. It's the most rewarding thing you'll probably ever do. And you'll definitely grow closer to God.
Each year, hundreds of Adventist volunteers take opportunities across the globe to serve, to love, and to teach others about the love of Jesus. You can too. Visit AdventistVolunteers.org.
Effective Urban Mission is a partnership between church leaders, pastors, and church members. And with me, I have three people here involved in Urban Mission: Pastor Kepler, Manuel, and Flavio. And Flavio and Manuel are church members who have a passion for mission. And Flavio, tell me, what is the purpose of what you're doing right here in Mexico City?
Here in Mexico City, you will find an interesting project, a project that obeys the divine mandate of Mark 16:15, that tells us to go and preach the gospel to all people. The World Seventh-day Adventist Church has cast a vision to reach the large cities of our planet. So here in Mexico City, we launched a project to work with the affluent, or the wealthy of this city and of this country. This is oftentimes a neglected group. So we began to offer Bible studies through small groups of study. There are currently Adventist members meeting in a special place with the people and families that are interested in learning the Bible. In attendance to these small groups are diplomats, entrepreneurs, business executives, and many others. We believe God can open a door here. There are currently 3 groups working hard to establish a Seventh-day Adventist presence in this part of town, in this part of Mexico City.
Gracias. And Manuel, what sort of methods are you using for Urban Mission?
Our method is to present the gospel in its proper diamond-like face. But how? Well, by presenting the health principles of physical, mental, and spiritual health. For this, our goal is to share the beautiful truths of the gospel with others. And we are working with a variety of professionals here in the city, through 3 small groups of Bible study, to be able to establish a new church, in order to honor and glorify the name of Jesus.
Wonderful, gracias. And Pastor Kepler, you are the pastor of this big church here in the center of Mexico City, and you have lay people working with you. What is actually happening on the ground?
All right, we need to work together. We need to be blessed on the presence of the Holy Spirit in our life. We need to work with one vision. The message is for all the people. The gospel is for all the people in all the world. But in this city, in this specific area, we have not gone. We need to go. But we need to do with something, some methods methods that we need to learn and we need to do and we need to imagine, and the Lord give us intelligence for do it. We need to do friendly with these people because there are businessmen who his houses are closed, and we need to that these people open their houses. How we can do this? Only because these people don't need food, don't need medical service, do not need some help, but these people need a real friendly.
Right. So traditional ways that we might reach many other people, they're not going to even touch these people. And so what you're talking about, what you're describing to me is Christ's method, where you mingle and you make friends first.
All right. Somebody introduced me these people, and I present myself like I am. In fact, they told me in the beginning, they don't tell me pastor, they tell me for my name. Hey, you are Saul. And after, they combine me to his houses, and I combine him to my house, and they eat with me, and I eat with them, with these people. And after, I told him, all right, I am a Christian. You can know the Jesus Christ.
Wonderful. What sort of friendships have you made so far?
All right. First, we are studying the Bible with a businessman. He works with the building, and he is administration of building, and he is a businessman. And the other people are political people who we are working with them because somebody come by to my church, somebody introduced me, and I told with him about Jesus Christ. First friendly, after of Jesus Christ. Another of them, one man that is a Colonel Elio. He is helped me because he preached the Lord word. And when I combine another people and some artists of the city, I combine you, he is my friend. And another friend going to preach about Jesus, and is the consul of the Brazil. And the people say, oh, it's so important, I can go to listen to him. And the people comes. In fact, 15 days ago, somebody told me, hey, what are you doing here? Are you diplomatic? I told him, no, I am not. And asked her, are you diplomatic too? Oh, I'm not. I am businesswoman, and I live here. And told him, you can to pray with us. Really? Are you come to pray? All right, and she will come with us in next meeting.
Wonderful. Pastor, thank you so much for sharing with us today. And thank you to Flavio and Manuel. Mission to the cities, urban mission, is a challenge. It's expensive to work in the cities. There are places that we can't even physically reach unless we know somebody in the apartment block. There are so many different cultures, so many different languages, so many different socio-economic levels, and it's so encouraging here in Mexico City to see ministry to people who are on the streets, people who don't know where their next meal is coming from, and also people who may be more rich and increased with goods but still need to know about Jesus Christ as their Savior. Please pray for Mission to the Cities here in Mexico City. Don't go away, we'll be right back after this break. Welcome back to Mexico City. Next up, we travel to Malawi, where a Seventh-day Adventist missionary doctor is working in an urban environment as the only cardiologist in the entire country. Dr. Tiffany Priester and her husband recently caught up with Rick Kajira at the Adventist World Headquarters.
Thank you, Gary. Our guests today are Dr. Tiffany Priester and Daryl, who come to us all the way from the country of Malawi in southern Africa. Thank you for joining us today.
It's our pleasure.
Now, where are you from originally?
I grew up in the Southern California region near Loma Linda.
Okay, near Loma Linda, where you also studied?
Yes.
Okay. Now, how did you end up as a medical missionary in Malawi? Was that always your dream to be a medical missionary, or was it something that just hit when you're in medical school?
As far as I can remember, it was one of my dreams. I actually grew up listening to a radio station called KSGN, and they featured mission stories. And Loma Linda often had missionaries, especially medical missionaries, returning. And those stories inspired me. And I said, you know, I want to be a medical missionary. I'm sure somewhere along the line I changed my mind several times, but by the time I was at Walla Walla College, I knew I was a pre-med major. I was going to be in medicine, and I was probably going to try to be an Africa medical missionary. And it's my freshman year of medical school, I signed up for the Deferred Mission Appointee, or DMA program, and this is where I've ended up. Okay.
Now, Daryl, when you met Tiffany, did you know that she had this dream of being a medical missionary someday, or?
I did. I have been going on mission trips for many years myself, and when I was in youth ministry, I took kids on mission trips, and the idea that we might take a longer term trip sounded great to me.
Okay. Out of curiosity, where did you go when you took kids on mission trips?
Mostly Mexico.
Okay, right. Now, listening to the mission stories about being a medical missionary and being a medical missionary may or may not be the same thing. Were your expectations fulfilled when you reached Malawi, or what was that like?
I learned by traveling over the years that I shouldn't have very many expectations, but even so, even with the few expectations I had, it's always quite different. The hospital I work at is in a city, and it's much different from the rural stories that people used to present as missionaries. So I actually work a lot with the middle and upper class, and some with the poor people, and I have a lot more I can use. We have antibiotics, we have ventilators, we have an intensive care unit, I have stress testing equipment and cardiology equipment that I can use, and so it is quite a bit different, but I would say at least in a good way.
And the Adventist Church has rural hospitals and city hospitals, and you happen to end up in a city one, but in some ways you have a large population that you can make a difference in their lives when you're in a city.
Do. And as the only cardiologist in the country, people come from the city, from the rural areas, and from everywhere else as well.
Okay, so you're the only cardiologist in all of Malawi?
Yes.
Okay, and what about the surrounding countries?
Yeah, there's also no access to cardiology care for several of the surrounding countries for quite some distance. So there is Maputo Heart Institute far to the south, so the country surrounding us is Mozambique, and we get people that come in, and as far away as Harare, where there also is a cardiologist, but if someone needs a second opinion, they'll drive over to see me. Okay.
Now, when you look at the challenges of city mission hospitals, what are some of the major issues that people face there?
As people move to the cities, they develop the diseases of lifestyle. So some of what I treat is actually similar to what we would see here. Obesity, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, starting to have heart attacks. So those things need to be addressed. The message about healthful living, about walking instead of driving a car, it's very difficult to get across to people who finally have a car, finally don't have to walk 10 miles to get water. And to understand the health effects, it's sometimes quite awkward to emphasize that to people. We also have to balance our care and our outreach clinics to the poor with our outreach to the upper and middle class, especially the business class. So I do also an outreach clinic, which is an hour-and-a-half drive each way once a week down to a rural hospital, Malawi, as well as to the government hospital in town.
So along with the benefits of city living come some of the negatives of health issues. And cities are becoming one of the big mission areas. You know, it's where people are. In recent years, the global population has shifted from being rural to urban. Excuse me. So when you are working in a mission hospital like that, and if you had somebody who said, you know, hey, you know, I'm interested in going out in mission service of some kind, what advice would you give them?
I would say people who are getting ready to go out that they should learn about the area they're going to. You know, if they're going to a rural hospital, it's going to be very different than a city hospital. I'd say that they ought to be very aware of the health risks themselves. Some places have malaria, some places have yellow fever, so people who are getting ready to go out. And then to try to have fewer expectations. I think the fewer expectations you have, the less you can be disappointed. And, you know, every single mission field is different. And the things that are needed there are different. The health messages might be different that are needed there. I can remember someone talking about not wearing constrictive clothing to a group of people who had only one set of clothes. So the health message actually is going to vary. So I'd say my best advice would be for people to understand where they're headed for, what the needs are.
Daryl, what were some of the major adjustments you had to make when you moved into Malawi?
Well, I had to drive on the right side of the road and remember to do that every time. And really, the pace of life is quite a bit different, and Malawi's changing, and the population is growing, and you find more people in the roads, in cars, on bicycles, on foot, and it's just a different way of driving. The level of attention that's required is certainly quite a bit different. And as Malawi changes, you know, the missionary needs change as well. The church is growing, the needs change there, and what is true for us today won't be true for missionaries 10 years from now.
Sure. Our time is almost up, but if somebody wants to really do something to make a difference in mission, what would you tell them is key?
Well, I think there are probably three things that we need. We need people to pray for us, to support God's work. We need professionals that can help us, you know, maybe an architect, a nurse, a respiratory therapist, you know, an administrator, an accountant, those kind of things. And then, of course, financially, donations are always useful for capital projects.
But how can they help financially?
Donations can be made to us through AdventistHealthInternational.org/Malawi.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for joining us today. And back to you, Gary.
We met some student missionaries who have volunteered at least a year of their lives in service for others. Their work has made a difference in the lives of so many kids. Let's hear some testimonies from some of the students of former student missionaries.
From around the globe, Seventh-day Adventist University students take a year off from school to travel abroad to beautiful parts of the world, where they teach island kids to read and write, but most importantly, to love. The impact these volunteer student missionaries have on the young kids surpasses understanding. Here are the testimonies of students of former student missionaries who are now attending Walla Walla University.
They had a lot to do with guidance. You know, they were counselors to me.
All of the student missionaries impacted my life in a really, really, really big way.
You just make a lot of friends for life. You know, I'm still in touch with my first grade teacher.
Most people who I've talked to, they think, oh, I'm going to be a student missionary. I'm just going to go teach a kid English. But it's a lot more than that. A student missionary was the one who taught me to tie my shoe.
I had 2 or 3 teachers in high school, my senior year from Walla Walla, and they all helped me apply for Walla Walla. If it wasn't for them, I don't think that I would be here.
It affected me in a really positive way. When I was in high school, I wasn't the best kid around the block, but I did try hard in school. Through my church, I got scholarships that gave me the opportunity to be the person that I am today.
I was counting today, and 17 out of my 25 teachers were from Walla Walla.
I've been taught by a total of 31 student missionaries, and about 50% of them were from Walla Walla University.
The school probably wouldn't function if we didn't have SMs in the islands.
If it wasn't for them, we wouldn't have a school.
Back home, I was taught by SMs my whole life.
The teachers that came and taught me my science classes were also science majors here at Walla Walla, and you could tell that their teaching style was adapted from professors here.
I was leaning towards architecture, but then an SM who was from here, he's a civil engineering student, and he kind of influenced me to go the civil engineering direction, and I'm glad I chose that.
They taught me my subjects, of course, but then they also taught me life lessons. They inspired me to come here. They had a huge impact on our lives there, all the little kids running around campus.
I learned a lot about God from them too. Taking a year off from school to come and devote yourself to serving, wow, that just touches me.
They're not just their teachers, but they're also their friends, their siblings, or they could even be parents for some who don't even have parents.
Some of them I got really close to. They're just like brothers and sisters to me.
One day I hope to be a student missionary too.
The list of opportunities changes every year. You can volunteer your time and energy around the world. There are people who need you. To become an Adventist Volunteer Services missionary, visit AdventistVolunteers.org. There are many different types of opportunities to serve in many areas and places. Are you hearing God's call to serve? Will you go?
Well, that's about it for today's program, and I hope that you've enjoyed our 360-degree view of mission around the world, from the mighty metropolis of Mexico City to the isolated islands of Micronesia to the huge continent of Africa. Men and women are sharing the light of God's love. And they're not just preaching and teaching, they're demonstrating Christ's love through acts of care and compassion. Thank you so much for your continuing support of mission through your prayers and through your finances. And I'd like to send you a small gift of thank you for what you are doing. It's the Mission Spotlight DVD, full of wonderful stories like you see on this program. Just contact us and we'll be happy to send you a free sample copy. Well, for Adventist Mission, I'm Gary Krause, and I hope that you can join me next time here on Mission 360.